Hello, today I want to talk about the Necrolord Covenant abilities and my experience and my thoughts using them here on the Shadowlands Beta for the last several weeks. I absolutely love these abilities. They are my personal favorites out of the entire bunch, not only because of the way they perform and the cool things we can do with them, but also just aesthetically, thematically. I just am a really big fan of these Covenant abilities. So I wanted to talk to you guys and share with you all the cool things you can do with these and kind of just go over it and make sure that you guys have a full picture of exactly what these abilities are capable of. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So first of all, let's actually talk about what these abilities do. So if we look at the first one, it's the primary one that everybody who's a member of the Necrolord Covenant gets, and that is called Fleshcraft. This is a channeled ability that has a 2-minute cooldown, and it forms a shield of flesh and bone over 4 seconds that absorbs damage equal to 20% of your maximum health for 2 minutes. Channeling near a corpse claims their essence to grow that shield up to 50% of your maximum health. This is most effective against powerful enemies. So let's break this down and go over what this exactly means and how we can actually use this ability. So Fleshcraft, when you press it, first of all, it's channeled, and for some reason you can't see my channel bar, which is really weird, but if you move, that channel gets interrupted. If you get kicked, that channel gets interrupted and you're locked out of your shadow magic kind of category as a frost DK. That means your death grip isn't going to work. A lot of your different magical abilities will not work. So that's pretty bad in PvP to get kicked on. In PvE, this is pretty cool because it is just, you don't have to worry about getting kicked. You don't have to worry about having to move. You don't have to worry about any of that. You can set it up before the pull. This will stay on for upwards of 2 minutes. You can basically cast it over and over and over again. If it never breaks, then you just have it permanently. And that's really awesome. This was definitely going to save your life against different boss mechanics and against, trash swapping on you when your tank loses aggro, standing in something on accident. This is going to be a huge bonus for PvE. This can be fairly powerful in PvP as well, however, it does have much more limited use. And that limited use means that, first of all, like I said, you can't use it while you're moving, which makes you kind of a sitting duck in PvP. You don't want to get kicked on it because that can be pretty bad at the wrong moment. And on top of that, the shield doesn't really build quickly enough for you to actually stand there and channel it. Let's say they don't have a kick and a warrior's just hitting on you. Can you stand there and channel it in his face and it actually give you enough of an absorb to kind of give you 4 seconds of protection? Not really. The players do more damage than it can absorb in that amount of time, so it's not really a good way to avoid taking a ton of damage inside of burst cooldowns or something. It's a little bit more of a risk than it is to just not use it, since you can't attack or heal yourself while you're channeling it. So if we come and look over here in the Soulbinds, there's a couple of Soulbind abilities that really alter the way that this ability works. The first one is under Plague Deviser Maraleth, and what this does is called Ultimate Form, and what it does is while channeling Fleshcraft, you are immune to crowd control and you regenerate 2% health every 1 second. The 2% health every 1 second thing is actually new, and I haven't had a whole lot of chance to play around with that, but I've used the rest of this quite a bit. If you finish the full channel, you gain 4 seconds of crowd control immunity, during which you regenerate 2% of your health every 1 second. So this is pretty cool. One thing to note is you can still get kicked on it. So if you are going to go this route, then you definitely want to be running something like Omni CC, or at least be pretty good at tracking kicks in your head so that you don't get kicked on it, because that, like I said, that can be fairly devastating if that happens at the wrong moment in an arena. Now, something really cool that you can do with this, and I've done it a couple of times, is first of all, on the more obvious side of things, you can use it if you see a polymorph coming out and you are pretty sure it's going on you, and this goes for Fear, Cyclone, anything like that, then you can actually drop this and start doing it and then eat the polymorph and it goes away like it never even happened. And that is a really cool use, and if you do manage to get it all the way off, then you get 4 more seconds of CC immunity, which is pretty cool too. But the problem with using it this way is trying to make sure that you don't get kicked while you're doing it. That is a huge part of this, and for this reason alone, it's not very easy to actually pull off. Now then, on the less obvious side of things, and this is the way that I've actually been able to use it successfully more, is when a rogue is opening up on you, if you have pretty good timing about those kinds of things, or if you see your partner get sapped and you're standing fairly close, then you can kind of time it out. When's the rogue gonna open up on me? And I've done this about 4 or 5 times now successfully, and that is at the moment that they open up on me, literally the same instant that they go for it, I start casting this, and then they waste their kidney, they waste their cheap shot, they get no CC off in their opener. I get a big old shield. It throws them for a giant loop every time, and they usually don't kick it. I haven't been kicked on it in that specific scenario yet. And so I've completely ruined a few rogues openers doing this to them. However, I don't think any of those rogues fell for it a second time. And you gotta also get the timing right. So I mean, sometimes you're gonna get it, sometimes you're not gonna get it. That's another cool thing that you can do with it using that Plague Deviser Marleth ability. There's no other Soulbinds that really alter the way the ability works, at least to that degree. However, there is one, and I believe it's from Emily. Yeah, it's from Emily right here, which is the one that I normally run. She actually will allow you to channel your Fleshcraft while moving. As you can see here, I'm not currently running that Soulbind ability, and the reason I'm not is because I want access to this potency conduit. In my book, it's completely, that is a very fair trade. I would rather have an extra potency conduit to get the biggest obliterates I possibly can. That's the build I'm going, you know, so this is going to be a lot more rewarding for me, especially since even though you can channel it while moving, which is nice, especially for like pillar humping gameplay, when maybe, you know, you're 1v1ing for the win or something like that, and you're, you know, trying to kite around the pillar, you can totally get something like that off with a good old cheeky Fleshcraft. However, I think that I would prefer, and so far I haven't regretted my choice, to just go for the potency conduits. So that's pretty much it for the abilities from the Soulbind tree that actually alters the way that Fleshcraft functions. So now let's talk a little bit about Abomination Limb. Abomination Limb is the ability that Death Knights get specifically from joining the Necrolord Covenant. But although the damage isn't bad, there are other covenants that increase our damage or do as much or more damage themselves, and so that's not the reason we're really taking this either. The main reason we are taking this is for the utility, the ability to pull those targets in. Now, it will only pull one target at a time, so there are 8 enemies around you, then it will prioritize the enemy that you are hitting first. If that person can be pulled, it will pull them. Then it will just start randomly grabbing people within 20 yards of you, one at a time, and then it can only grip the same person again every 4 seconds. So this isn't quite a Gorfiend's Grasp like it was originally on the beta that I know most of you have probably heard of. Sadly, they have nerfed it since then and is not that strong, and that is a little disappointing. However, this Abom Limb is still insanely powerful, especially in scenarios where there's not a ton of targets. In a battleground, for example, it doesn't really work that good unless the target that you are currently targeting is away from you, because it will pull that person first, and then from there it'll just randomly pull people in a team fight, and it has really no like smart way of doing that. So it's not necessarily, as you know, Gorfiend's Grasp level of power, but in arena where you have a lot fewer targets, it is extremely powerful. So the way that I use this to be extremely powerful in arena is, first of all, the very obvious one of not letting mages, hunters, and anything else that zooms, teleports, or gets away from you often, not letting those classes do that to you, not letting them get too far away from you. That's a pretty obvious one, but there's a couple of other ways you can use this to really maximize its potential. First one is pairing it with Chill Streak. So something I'll do is I will do an immediate, I will open up with ripping in the healer or the off target into the team fight in an arena, and then immediately after I'll summon my ghoul, because we'll talk about the Soulbind's ability in a moment, but that will give us extra strength, and then I will pop my Abom Limb. And what this does is, now that everybody's around me, the first person to escape, it's going to pull in. The next person to escape will also pull that person in. And so they're just stuck on top of you. And what you can do with this is you can go for a really, really big chill streak. Now, another thing that you can do is you can pair it up with a Windwalker Monk's Fist of Fury and just go completely Walking Dead on them. The Fist of Fury is doing a lot of damage. Your chill streak's doing a lot of damage. The Fist of Fury is also locking those targets down so that they can trinket, but then they're just going to get pulled by the Abom Limb a second later. And if they realize that, they realize there's no escaping. If you're not running with a Windwalker, you can pair it with a Resto Druid who now has Ursol's Vortex baseline. And what that ability does is they place this Vortex on top of your head, and you pop your Abom Limb, and in between those things, since there is that 4-second internal GCD on Abom Limb, then you can basically wait for, you know, the Abom Limb pulls them in, then they leave, the Ursol's Vortex pours them in, then they leave, and then the Abom Limb pulls them in again, and it's just over and over and over again, and there's no escaping. And you can get massive chill streaks if you time this right, if you choose the target with the most mobility. If they're a monk and you know they're just gonna roll, if it's a resto druid, you know they're just gonna blink, anything like that, then what you can do is you can stun that target right after gripping them in, and then go for the chill streak, and then them and the person with the least mobility, like the warrior or the other DK, just has to hopefully waddle out of distance before it hits them a few times, which they won't. So it's a great way to force trinkets out of healers. It's a great way to do a ton of team damage, and ultimately this is why Abom Limb is my favorite Covenant ability as a Death Knight. So now let's talk about those Soulbind abilities. If we look at the Soulbind abilities and what they'll do for Abom Limb, my number one pick is Emini for Abom Limb, and that's because of Emini's last ability, Lead by Example. Abomination Limb increases your strength by 5% and nearby allies' primary stat by 2% for 20 seconds. You gain 5% additional strength for each ally affected up to 15%. So if we come over here to the target dummy, what this means is if I hit my Abom Limb, up here it says 5% strength. If I summon my ghoul, wait, what? Wait, did they pop? Wait, wait, what? All right, so as you just saw, it was not a nerf. I thought for a second there it was a nerf. It used to be retroactive, but it doesn't seem to be retroactive anymore. And what I'm talking about is when I pressed my Abom Limb, it gave me my 5% strength baseline. But when I summoned my ghoul, I did not go up to 10%. It wasn't a retroactive change. Now this is weird because Blizzard got rid of snapshotting, which is basically what that's called, years ago. So I'm not sure if this is intended or not, but at least at the moment, this means that you definitely do not ever want to accidentally pop that Raised Dead second. You always want to do a Raised Dead into your Abom Limb, and that will give you your 10% strength. But what we're seeing here is Abom Limb gives you 5% extra strength for every target within range. This includes your pet, this includes your allies in an arena or dungeon, this includes their pets, and this also will work great in PvE as well. Now there is a limit, it will only go up to 15%. Earlier in the beta it had no limit, I think, or very much a higher limit than this, and it was pretty crazy, but it is now set to 15%, and basically when you wait for all of your trinket procs and everything to line up, and you pop this ability, then you can get about a 15 to 16k obliterate, which ain't too shabby, that's for sure. Now, as for the ability itself, it does do quite a bit of damage, as I mentioned before. I'll go ahead and throw up a screenshot of my full burst sequence, including my Abom Limb and exactly how my damage happened and where it came from. So as you can see there, Abom Limb is doing pretty good. It's not a crazy amount of damage, but I honestly prefer that because I would prefer to have a class that does its own damage and, you know, not relying on 40% of its damage or something coming from Abom Limb. So I would say overall that is awesome. Now, so how about some other ways that we can actually use these abilities? In PvE, you can use this to group up lots and lots of adds. You can use that in questing or in dungeons, especially if you're a tank for the latter. And you can do that really, really easily and set up huge Frostworm's Furies, which is your dragon ability. You can just set up massive explosive ones of those just on giant groups of enemies. It really makes questing and doing big bursts extremely easy for this reason. You do have to watch out in PvE though, because it will totally grab targets that you don't want it to if you're fighting in close quarters. This isn't a problem that I've actually ran into myself so far, but I've seen it happen to other DKs and I've heard it happen to other DKs. I just make sure that I save it for very large groups where we're cleaning out a room and I don't really have to worry about it pulling something I don't want it to pull. It is something that you're going to want to watch out for though. And that does lead us into how exactly does this perform in PvE. As I said, the damage on it is good, but it's not spectacular, which isn't too much of a problem, but in PvE, where your damage is the main thing and you don't have all that utility bonus that you're getting for PvP, what is the reason that you'd want to run this in PvE? And that is a little bit tougher of a question to answer. In PvE, it's honestly just not as good of a choice as the rest. It is not an awful choice though. It still gives you interesting things you can do by helping out the tank, or if you decide to tank, then you can pull lots of enemies, and that is a very useful thing to do. However, if that's not what you're intending to do, is pull lots of enemies, then this is not the greatest ability for you. It's also not the best damage dealer either. We'll see our damage spike quite high every 2 minutes, but on average our damage will be a little bit lower since the better PvE covenants have shorter cooldowns, 30 seconds for the Night Fae and 1 minute for the Venthyr, and even 1 minute for the Kyrian. So ultimately, it's not a very strong PvE contender unless you are looking for those niche kind of utility bonuses of being able to pull lots of things to you. And I'm sure that there are lots of situations where, especially if you have good communications with your tank, where that's going to come in handy, and out in the world it is absolutely amazing. I love using this thing when I'm world questing. I just pull an entire zone and I just go ham. Hit them with the dragon, hit them with a chill streak because I'm in war mode, and they're gone. And so if you're looking for questing kind of PvE and open world stuff, then this is an amazing ability there too, but it certainly falls a little behind in PvE. If you like this video, make sure and give it a like. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this from me, and I will catch you next time. Have a great day.